Hello, this is Joe with Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things that are important to the world of barbecue and grilling. This show originates from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings, a live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. The second quarterly appearance from Barbecue Central Show's resident cigar expert, co-host of the Cigar Authority's podcast, and a sales manager over at Two Guys Smoke Shop in New Hampshire. Mr. Jonathan returns. And there's a lot of cigar stuff to talk about, not the least of which happens to be a sponsor of this show. And then previous to that, we'll be talking about a cigar juggernaut in their recent releases. We'll talk about some cigar beginner stuff. We'll talk about personal preference. And then we will see Mr. J in 3 months' time after that. And then we will move to 35 past the first hour, where we will be visited by none other than the contributing barbecue editor to Southern Living magazine, Robert Moss. And the question on everybody's mind, and I'm not going to answer it here at the top, we call that a tease in the biz, is am I going to be forcing a fifth month of Michelin Star Guide nonsense down your throat? I'm not going to answer it one way or the other. Some of you are hoping against hope that I do. Some of you are praying to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ himself that I will not...
Andrew, you are
not talk about the Michelin Star Guide stuff anymore. I can tell you this, it's 50-50 at this point on one way or the other, and those are the best odds that you can possibly have, not only relating to this question, but in your life in general. 50-50 are the best odds. That's going to bring a close to the first hour, and then we'll move to the second hour, where we will find a visit from now three-time guest. Some of you might call him Iron Chef. Some of you might call him New York Times, the best-selling cookbook author. Some of you might call him TV show host from things like The Chew, or the current show that he's doing right now on Food Network called 24 and 24. Some of you might call him fellow Clevelander like I do. Or some of you just call him Michael Symon, yes, at 1014. And then at some point along the trail of interview, we will mix in who I believe is also third-time guest joining us from Cleveland Heights. Michael Symon's, is it co-writer? Not ghostwriter, because I don't think they show up anywhere in name. He is prominently displayed on all 8 of the books that they've worked on together. Our pal Doug Trattner will be joining the show Cleveland Scene's food writer. He's been doing that for decades. One of the few that remain doing it. I have a whole thought process on how Doug has been able to continue to not only make a living but thrive as being a, let's call it, mid-major cities food critic and not go by the wayside like some of these other big city hacks have because of the style that Doug does it in. Perhaps a Renaissance man long, long ago, which has now led to his continued success and enjoyment of being Cleveland Scene's most celebrated food writer. So that's how the show is laying out here this evening. In a few short moments, a Mr. Jonathan visit, then a Robert Moss, and then in the second hour, Michael Symon and Doug Trattner if you need them. Don't forget, you can follow me socially on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and LinkedIn, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. And, of course, we say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms, shrinking by one over the last couple weeks, no longer Twitter. But you can go and watch the show, facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch the show on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we do have a new YouTube poll question of the week. And we're asking everybody watching on YouTube, including all guests, do you think that Brad Leiniger of Getting Basted will make it into the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame? Not the Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame, completely separate and arguably more prestigious Hall of Fame to get into, but this is the traditional Barbecue Hall of Fame that we've come to know and love. Do you think that Brad Leiniger of Getting Basted will get into the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame? And currently 60% of you are saying no. That means 40% of you are saying yes. And right off the rip, I have to think that this is much closer of a vote than I thought it was going to be. I thought it would be a little bit more of a runaway on the nose considering who Brad is, even though his resume is beyond reproach. But if it took Darren Worth 3 times to get in, I thought that a Brad Leiniger first time in probably won't be there. Just my experience with the Hall of Fame, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And this year specifically, I have no insider information. Now, 67% of you are saying no, so it's growing. Just over those seconds of me giving you why Brad probably won't get in. So we'll see how the rest of the show plays out as far as statistics are concerned with the YouTube poll question of the week. Results of the poll question from what is 2 weeks ago, because we were off last week. Have you heard of the African Charcoal Company? 81% of you saying no. Until I saw Dr. Barbecue becoming a spokesperson or pitchman for that, I too had never heard of the African Charcoal Company. So we'll start here tonight, and many of you wondering through last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as I was tardy getting back to a lot of folks. Where were you last week? Why no show? It's because I was in Vegas, baby. Yeah. Oh, come on. Here's the recap in 2 minutes. The first time you go to Las Vegas, should it be for work? No. Should it be because the only reason you're going for work is because of one of your biggest customers? No. Why? Because when you show up on Sunday noon, Vegas time, and the pool party that you're sponsoring for 10 grand doesn't start for 3 more hours, what does a young, spry chap like me do? Well, we take a nap till 2:30 to eat back some of the clock that escaped me on the trip out. And then you do the completely over-attended pool party, where I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, had I not even attended, nobody, and I mean nobody, would have noticed. I could have said I was there, and nobody could call me a liar. In fact, nobody could call me not a liar. That's how many people were there. And then, I don't know what my obligations are to the customer on a Monday. Well, we had a big dinner at Don's Prime in Fontainebleau. And that meat purveyor of Fontainebleau happens to be America's Butcher, Pat LaFrida, so I knew the meat was going to be good. I could have cooked it better, if we're all being honest with each other. But the New York strip that I got was succulent and tender. But again, not what I would call expertly cooked, given that quality of meat for a canvas to work from. And then Tuesday, I went and watched the Cavs lose, and it appears at last check, the Cavs are also losing, ushering their way out of the playoffs, which is heartache on many levels. So I tried to remain open-minded. I tried to think, well, I'm not a gambler, so 90% of that town is lost on me because every 8 feet there's a new casino that you can go in and lose money on. The minute you get off the jetway in the airport, there's gambling machines right there at the ready. You start losing money from the time you step foot in to the time you step foot out, all points in between. I went to Egg Slut. I would recommend not going there. Heard all about Egg Slut. Plenty more to talk about on the Vegas stuff. I would say long weekend with the wife in advance, picking out some show tickets and doing it that way, staying down where all the other hosts. I was up at the Encore all the way to the top of the strip of the convention center, where that was close for me to go to the convention, the Waste Expo. But I was at the customer's behest, so I couldn't make plans on my own, and what if I got called out? Not the best way to go is what I'm saying. Room was great, by the way, at Encore. Highly recommend. All right, Mr. J from the Cigar Authority ready to go. Before we get to him, if you're serious about taking your grilling game to the next level, you need to check out the latest from Pits and Spits. We're kicking it off with the Pits and Spits griddle. Gas griddle combining the power of a traditional grill with the versatility of a flat-top griddle. Engineered with precision, crafted from top-quality materials, the versatile griddle is set to revolutionize your outdoor cooking experience. Constructed of 304 marine-grade stainless steel, a fully welded design. The griddle comes with 4 burners to accurately manage your heat zones and gets blistering hot with 80,000 BTUs. Made with the Pits and Spits signature quality, this griddle designed to last for generations. Now, for those of you building your ultimate outdoor kitchen, you have to check out the new built-in pellet grill, designed for the discerning grill master who demands top-tier performance. This grill, the centerpiece for any serious outdoor kitchen. Low and slow smoking, high heat searing, this grill can handle it all. Brisket, ribs, pizzas, veggies, everything in between. This grill can cook it. And with the Pits and Spits legendary craftsmanship, you can be confident it's built to last. So if you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head on over to pitsandspits.com, all spelled out. Pitsandspits.com with a double T on the Pits and the Spits. /BBQ Central, and you can use promo code BBQ Central for a free spice pack with orders over $500 or more. So head on over there right now. Hook up with the griddle/grill or the new built-in pellet grill or both. You're definitely over $500 at that point. Maybe they'll give you 2 spice packs. Why not? All right, it's Cigar Talk next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the show brought to you by Fireboard, makers of Fireboard 2, Fireboard Pro, Fireboard Spark, the Fireboard Beacon, and the new wireless Fireboard Pulse. When you use the Fireboard app, you have total access to all devices anywhere in the world. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. The folks over at Fireboard. Our first guest tonight, a well-known figure in the cigar community. One of the co-hosts of the very popular, if not the most popular, Cigar Authority podcast. Making a second quarterly appearance here in 2025 to talk about the latest news and trends in the cigar industry. The BBQ Central Show's very own official cigar expert, Mr. Jonathan joining us once again on the show. Mr. J, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that I'm sure you're hotly ready to answer. And we're asking everybody, including all guests, this question. Do you think that Brad Leiniger, pitmaster of Getting Basted, will make it into the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame?
I believe that anybody that gets nominated deserves to go in. If you've gone through the process of people knowing you well enough, then yes, I believe he gets in.
All right, we'll see how that goes. 56% of the YouTube voting public saying that they believe he will not get in. It was just 50-50 about 5 seconds ago, so we will see how that tracks through the rest of the evening here. All right, we'll start this segment like we start every segment because it's an ever-changing cavalcade of smoke availability. What's smoking well in the shop today, Mr. J?
Man, I'll tell you, all things Perdomo, from his new Legacy, 30th anniversary, Garofalo Maduro, that's all under the Perdomo umbrella. You guys all know I'm a fan of the Aladino Corojo Reserve. It's firing on all cylinders right now. Everything HVC's putting out is killing it. And there's a brand new one, new kid. He's not new to the industry. He was repping for a little bit. In fact, he was my rep for a little while. It's Ultimate Cigars by Carlos Nodal, the son of the famed maker of Aging Room, Rafael Nodal. That cigar blew me away.
Am I incorrect in saying that perhaps the cigar industry, like no other, is familially intertwined?
Yeah, it seems like it becomes a generational thing before you know it. You've got the Padrones on their second generation right now. Perdomo is on really their third generation in the tobacco industry, but second generation as far as being able to pass it from the first guy, Nick Perdomo, passing it to his son, Nicholas III. But deep roots in tobacco. The Nadals, like I mentioned, the list goes on and on. It seems like if you grow up with a parent or grandparent in the industry, once it gets its hooks in you, that's it.
There's been a big push from one of the leading companies in the cigar world, the name we've mentioned just a couple times already, that being Perdomo. So not too long ago, they released a 30th anniversary brand, and then this past week, exclusively on the Cigar Authority show, live and then in podcast, they launched the Perdomo Legacy that you just mentioned. In essence, a son's tribute to his father. So let's start with the latter portion of that statement. How intense do you think this must have been from a journey standpoint for Nicholas Perdomo to make this cigar for his dad, Nick Perdomo?
Well, it started off, he was on the panel for this cigar here, the Perdomo 30th. That was Arthur Kemper's baby. And he and Nicholas and a bunch of other people in the factory put this project together to pay tribute to the company's 30th anniversary in business. And that sort of was the start of Nicholas cutting his teeth as far as being a blender away from his dad. And then when he starts working on the Legacy, he was working on the Legacy during this whole time, but when he finalized the blend for the Legacy, utilizing tobaccos that they had experimented with and blends that had never been done before, along with box art that had never been done before. And I had a chance to hang out with him for 3 days, and you would think after hitting such an unbelievable home run, 500 boxes sold on the initial launch here, and there's more to come, and there's more cigars coming into the country. This could be the biggest thing that the cigar world has ever seen as far as a launch goes.
Traditionally speaking, what would be a good launch outside of the one you saw last weekend? Like 150 boxes, 200 boxes?
Yeah, that would be a really solid one. I think the record was held by the 30th with around 330 boxes sold in the first 3 days of it being out. That's a big number. And you have to imagine you're in a sea of brown when you're at a regular cigar store. And so why do the Perdomos decide they're going to launch the cigar with Two Guys Smoke Shop? Because we're going to be able to handle it correctly. We have the media platform laid out with the Cigar Authority. We have the ability to sell through our website, and we can move an awful lot of product in our retail stores. And that's becoming their model. When they release new stuff, they're keeping it to the better retailers because a launch like this needs the attention that it deserves.
You would be willing to say that had there been no Cigar Authority, or if Two Guys Smoke Shop wasn't as robust and respected as it is in the industry, if it was just a new blend, we're going to release it, our reps will talk about it, would have not had anywhere near the success as we saw this past weekend.
It would have taken 3 to 6 months to be able to have the amount of penetration into the market that it got.
Perdomo Legacy flavor notes. If we're going to go try and seek it out, or if we're going to go to twoguyscigars.com, I'm not afraid to say it on this show. What are we looking at from a flavor standpoint?
The new tobacco that they're working with is the shade grown. They grew it in Esteli. They combined 2 different wrappers, Cameroon from Cameroon, Africa, and Habano from Nicaragua. So with that hybridization, you get a little bit of a dry, nutty flavor with some sweet baking spice. The shade is a little sweet up front with some subtle baking spices in the back. And the Maduro is smooth with a little bit of a caramel and cocoa finish. All 3 are home runs, even the Connecticut. And those of you that listened to me on the show before know that I'm not a huge Connecticut fan because I find it to be bitter, but that they use the shade grown in Esteli as a binder, and it completely masks the bitterness that you normally would get from a shade grown wrapper.
Is Perdomo a known shade grown tobacco grower?
They don't grow shade grown like we think of it. So this is a new product where they're saying it's shade grown because they grew it under cheesecloth in Esteli. The sun is so strong in Esteli that even by reducing the sun's power by 40% using cheesecloth, between the sun and the soil, they still grew tobacco that after it was fermented, it looks like Maduro. And it has the flavor characteristics of a Maduro wrapper mixed with some sun grown. It's got a little hint of spice in there, but a lot of sweetness.
Would you bet money that this cigar will be 2025 Cigar of the Year? Really early, a lot of other, contenders to come into the mix, but given the launch and given everything we know about Perdomo, also they have won Cigar of the Year at least 2 times in the past. What do we think about this one?
Yeah, it is a contender for sure. And it all boils down to how well do you sell through your third order, because you can sell through an opening order, and our opening order was in excess of 800 boxes.
Wow.
So you could sell through that first order relatively easily and fairly quickly. And then it's the second order, which is on its way. And then if we can maintain this trajectory going into the third order, that's when you start being able to see numbers that put you in contention for actually being Cigar of the Year.
What kind of price tag are on these cigars?
$13 to $15.
So that's kind of the median cost of a decent cigar these days. I know it had bumped up to 2030 for a year or two, and then we had the McAuliffe effect where all of a sudden a value cigar could also be a good cigar, and people actually believed that. So this is somewhere in between that.
It is somewhere in between. And the Perdomos could have easily charged $20, $25, maybe even $30 for the bigger sizes.
Wow.
And they would have got it. But Nick Perdomo always talks about his dad saying that hogs get slaughtered. So they are in it for the long-term gain. They're keeping their margins fairly low and very manageable. And they're going to have this cigar available for years and years to come. And Perdomo is not going anywhere.
What percentage of consumer for Two Guys is buying box mostly or buying singles mostly?
We are selling about 80% of our volume by the box.
That's got to be way more than most cigar shops, no?
Yeah, it's most cigar stores. If you think about the 80-20 rule, you're going to have 20% of your cigar stores capable of transitioning into 80% of box sales. Then you flip that around, and most stores miss one very key element when it comes to retail, and they don't put the box price on the box of cigars. They tell you what the single price is, and maybe they do offer a discount on the box. They'll give you a 10 points off or 15% off. But if they don't tell you what that price is, you, the consumer, we're all lazy. We're not going to sit there with a calculator and figure out what we would pay per cigar based on this imaginary number that the retailer just refuses to put on the box. If you put the box price on the box, you're going to sell at least one box per front mark per year across the board.
Is it not a standard to give a box a discount? You don't have to.
No, it is a standard.
Yeah,
Almost every store will give you a discount by the box. They just refuse to tell you about it.
That's a bizarre way to think about doing business, is it not? Like, you would want somebody to buy more than one if given the opportunity to do quick math through their eyeballs.
Well, not only that, but if boxes of Perdomo are 24, or the small boxes are 12, those don't even count, but 24 or 30. If you've smoked a cigar 24 times, even if you didn't think it was the greatest cigar ever when you first started, by the time you get to the 24th cigar, you've acquired a taste for it. Much like the first time you had a sip of beer or the first time you had a scotch or red wine, you eventually acquire a taste for it. And now that's what you want. So it behooves you as a retailer to sell cigars by the box, because now you can get somebody on a brand, and you could take advantage of bigger discounts at trade shows and so forth.
The other cigar that Perdomo launched, it's the current Cigar Authority's Cigar of the Year, was the 30th anniversary from Perdomo. You gave us a little backstory on how that came to be, how Nicholas is also kind of involved in that. But from a flavor standpoint, what should we be looking for on this one?
This is a more refined blend than the other lines before. It's a little less peppery. There's a little bit less nicotine, but it's definitely Perdomo base notes. So if you love Perdomo, you're going to love it. But I find that even the guys that are on the fence about Perdomo, this is less Perdomo-y than the others. It's a little more refined, a little more upscale. I say that with love. So those guys that are on the periphery I'm seeing them start to gravitate toward the 30-year and put it in their rotation, along with the new legacy. Same idea.
Between the two, 30th anniversary and legacy, which one fits your palate the best?
The legacy for sure. That shade grown that they have is unbelievable. Right now, at this point in my career, I'm really chasing depth of flavor. How much flavor, how many transitions can I get for my dollar? And I'm kind of over the strong for the sake of being strong, or the one singular note throughout the cigar, even if I like that note. I want transitions and I want depth. And for the $13 to $15, the depth of flavor in the legacy, I think, is hands down. It's an industry leader at this point. If you take Placentia, for example, for $25, you get a lot of flavor transitions and you get a lot of depth of flavor, but it's $10 a cigar more. It's a great cigar, and I'm not poo-pooing it, but I could spend $10 less and grab a legacy.
Given the aggressiveness that Perdomo has shown close of the year, beginning of this year, could we expect anything else from them 2025?
Very, very unlikely. It takes them 3 years from start to finish, once they have the blend that they want, to be able to dial that blend in, get the cigars made, get the boxes made, the bands, the cliches, the follettas, all the artwork. That just takes time. And I know that they have stuff in the pipeline, but Nicholas is talking about 26 would be a miracle. We're looking at a new release from them in 27.
Also recently launched, a sponsor of mine, if you can believe it, McAuliffe Cigars has released a new color to their color line of cigars. What can you tell us about it?
That is a Mexican San Andreas wrapper over broadleaf binder. You've got Dominican, Mexican, and Nicaraguan fillers. For me, I put it in second place in the whole color series as far as the strength. It's second to black, in my opinion, then red, then blue. But there's some controversy over that because it seems to be hitting different people's palates differently. So you can't go by me. You're going to have to go out and get one and try it for yourself.
I feel like we might have a very similar strength and flavor palette, because when I have not had the purple yet, of course, but I find the black to be strongest and most robust when it comes to flavor. I find blue to be the least, and I just had a blue yesterday on the way to work in the mobile lounge, and it was great, but very underwhelming when it comes to amount of flavor and amount of strength. I find the red to be, I really love the black, but there must be something about that Habano wrapper that just grips my palate in a way that maybe I'm trending towards being a Habano wrapper guy, because I've had other Habano cigars and they all kind of grip me in that positive fashion.
It could be. I find that the red and the blue are the milder smokers' transition into McAuliffe. So there's not a whole lot of nicotine, but for a milder cigar, there's plenty of flavor. When you're a more seasoned smoker and you're looking for a little more oomph, I think that the purple has the sweeter spectrum, and then the black is more on the spice spectrum. And they're pretty close to each other as far as the actual nicotine strength. They're within a point of each other. If black is a 6, then purple's a 5 out of 10.
So black is your favorite, and then purple coming in a second.
Yeah, I'll smoke 3 or 4 blacks to 1 purple, and then maybe once a quarter I'll go for the red and the blue.
Generally speaking, do you have a wrapper preference, if we're just talking about how I seem to be loving Habanos recently?
So Habano is another word for sun-grown, which I gravitate toward myself. So globally speaking, it doesn't have to be Habano as far as the seed goes, but from a color spectrum, anything grown in the sun, and that includes Maduro. So all tobacco is sun-grown unless it's specified as shade-grown. So I tend toward sun-grown wrappers. I love a Maduro that isn't manipulated, and there's a host of ways they manipulate them. They can steam them. They can compress them. They can rub them together to bruise the wrapper. They can even go as far as to put the stems they frog-legged out of the fillers into a bucket. They let that soak in the bucket and kind of rot until they get this black water. So I'm not into any of that Maduro, but really slow and low fermented Maduro, just like brisket. If you go slow and low and you take your time, you can break the sugars down and get them to come to the top. And there is nothing better.
I was going to ask you to do a little cigar school, but let's save that till next quarter as we're drawing to a close. We have Memphis in May's World Barbecue Championship coming up this weekend. If I was eating a sweet with a little heat barbecue rib, which cigar would you pair with that? Or which one do you think would be the best?
So a good pairing with that is actually the McAuliffe Purple, because it is a cooler smoke with the complementary earthy undertone that's going to stand out over the sweet and spicy. You don't want to try to come in with something too sweet, and you certainly don't want to come in with something that's spicy and blow your palate out. So you need to come in with that little earthy undertone, and then you'll be able to taste all of the elements of what you're eating and smoking at the same time.
What about a savory piece of beef brisket?
So same idea. The Perdomo Legacy Shade Grown that we talked about earlier, that has a sweet component to it, and that's going to balance itself out off of the savoriness of the brisket, especially the fattiness too.
This is why he is the Barbecue Central Show's cigar expert. It's Mr. Jonathan, co-host over at the Cigar Authority Show, and you can find him selling cigars at the number2guyscigars.com. or go to the retail store where he's actually selling those cigars. Mr. J, always appreciate the time, and we'll see you again in 3 months.
All right, see you then.
There he is. I always come out of the segments feeling like I have become a little bit more cigar savvy after talking with Mr. J, and I think that's what it's all about, and that's what the whole focus of the Cigar Authority's podcast is. If you learn something on that show, that makes you the Cigar Authority, as he says at the end of every show. I definitely feel like I always learn something by the end of every Cigar Authority podcast. Sometimes it might take a while. Most of the times it's like right up front. I'm learning new stuff. Love learning. Love the cigars. All right, we have Robert Moss ready to go. Before we get to him, we'll talk to you about Primo grills. Primo grills are not round. Primo grills are oval. That's what really separates them from the rest of the ceramic cookers that are out there on the market today. Now, even though it's oval, it doesn't mean you are sacrificing what we have come to know and love about ceramic cookers. The ability to achieve low and slow temperatures for hours, if not days, depending on what it's like outside. The ability to get rip-roaring hot for the traditional grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. And of course, it's fuel efficiency. Everybody loves fuel efficiency when it comes to ceramic cookers, and you don't sacrifice anything or any of those when it comes to the Primo cooker. The only thing you're gaining is the real ability to do true two-zone cooking because of that oval shape. Now you can bank the calls over to the left, over the right. It also comes with a center divider if you'd like to do one of those. You can buy the accessory heat deflectors to give you an extra layer of indirectness if you would like. Plenty of accessories. I mean, what do we always say? Ultimately, the cooker costs the least when it's all said and done because there's a host of accessories that you can also spend money on. So these are only sold through dealers. You got to find one. Go to the website. Search your particular area where you live. Find the dealer near you. Check them all out there in person, all the ovals. And then buy the one that best fits your needs. PrimoGrill.com. That's PrimoGrill.com. And we're back with Robert Moss right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Mr. Jonathan from the Cigar Authorities podcast and the number 2guyscigars.com for joining us last segment during his quarterly cigar update. Looking forward to getting my hands on that purple cigar from McAuliffe, ASAFP. My next guest tonight is the contributing barbecue editor of Southern Living Magazine. 2023 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. We race to the hotline. And welcome back our pal Robert Moss to the show. Robert, we welcome you back. And we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody. Love to get your opinion on it as well. Do you think Brad Leiniger from Getting Basted will make it into the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame?
By all accounts, I think he's certainly worthy of it, but I predict that he will not make it this time around. I bet he'll be back next year.
We are now at a stalemate of 50-50 on the YouTube poll. 50% saying yes, 50% saying no, and we'll see how that tracks. I'm with you, Robert. I am also a no at this point, but I have no insider information. I'll get to that more in the second hour. So, much to the delight of the listening/viewing audience, and while I could absolutely do another segment on Michelin Star Guide stuff because there's been new info that has been leached out since our last visit and some very in-depth reporting from a friend of mine who hung out with a Michelin Star Guide in Mexico last weekend, an evaluator. This portion of engagement farming is done. We will move ahead to the initial topic that we had planned all the way back in January of 2025, which is talking about classic barbecue side dishes and then digging into the history and evolution and regions and all that good stuff. So why not start with a potentially controversial side, slaw? What do we know about slaw?
Well, I mean, quite a bit, actually. It is certainly, I think it's a very divisive side dish or just dish in general.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start by saying, are you a slaw fan? Will you by itself? Will you put it on a sandwich?
Forever. I looked at slaw like, why the hell would anybody eat that? And then even after I had gotten into barbecue initially just through the backyard, didn't really know too much about it, didn't know you could potentially even put coleslaw on a pulled pork sandwich and have it be magic. I was at a barbecue shop one time. They said, do you want slaw on it? And I said, do I? And he said, you absolutely do if you've never had it before, and then you can really make an informed decision. I said, okay, well, whip it up. And I had it, and I don't think I've eaten a pulled pork sandwich without slaw on it since. And that's been 15 years ago. But before that,
Yeah,
I was anti-slaw.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a big fan of it. Some people don't like cabbage, so if you don't like cabbage, it's gonna be hard to like slaw. My favorite, Pat Martin of Martin's Barbecue Joint, when he was first opening up, he's from West Tennessee, and he's insistent that a proper barbecue sandwich has to have slaw on it. And he was literally considering charging 50 cents extra to get a sandwich without slaw at the restaurant. But the rest of his managers and everybody talked him down off that ledge. But I'm with him. If you don't have slaw on the sandwich, you're not doing it quite right. I guess also controversial. Is it slaw or is it coleslaw, or what's the right term for that?
That must be a regional thing, because when I grew up, now remember, I'm upstate New York mostly, and then Cleveland for the second half of my life. It's coleslaw everywhere I've ever been.
Yeah, in barbecue joints, it tends to be slaw, just by itself. But I think that's a shortening. What's interesting to me, at least, is the origin of slaw. It actually goes back. It's really both a Dutch and a German term, and it's actually a uniquely American term. It sort of originated in New York and Pennsylvania, where there's a lot of Dutch and then German settlers. And in Dutch, kool, K-O-O-L, and salad or salad is literally cabbage salad. So kool is cabbage, and that's really all it means. In German, it's K-O-H-L, kohl, and salat. So kohl salat is the German term for it. And it became sort of a term up in that area. And really, at that point, this is back in the 18th century, no mayonnaise or anything like that. It was really just a simple mix of grated cabbage with vinegar, dressed in vinegar, and that was kohl salat, which came over to English, interestingly enough, not as coleslaw, but as cold slaw, as in the temperature, C-O-L-D. And you would actually see it spelled in the 19th century, cold slaw, well through the whole century is the most common way of spelling it. It wasn't toward the end of the 19th century that people started saying K or C-O-L-E and getting it to where it is. So you'll see cold slaw all over the place. And it was really popular side dish in oyster houses and places like that. Really about the 1880s is when you start seeing it show up at barbecues. And we've talked in the past about how 19th century barbecues were big outdoor events. And I think when we talk about side dishes, you got to remember that heritage of barbecue. And coleslaw was really one of the first barbecue side dishes from the old days, for the simple reason there was no refrigeration back then. And you could you could have a simple mix of cabbage with vinegar, maybe some salt and pepper, some seasoning, and you didn't have to refrigerate it. You could put it outside in the heat during a hot barbecue. So basically, you see the sides at early barbecues in the late 19th century, early 20th century, the outdoor barbecues tends to be coleslaw, usually C-O-L-D, pickles, maybe sliced tomatoes, and bread, things that didn't require any refrigeration at all. And that was really some of the earliest side dishes. So that's sort of the origins of it. Like so many things, it dates back to the old outdoor barbecue days.
When does a mayonnaise-based coleslaw come into play? Because as I had that first pulled pork sandwich that had a mayonnaise-based coleslaw on it, all of a sudden I'm now searching for different variations. I was making stuff with a Reverend Marvin's mustard-based barbecue sauce that's no longer available anymore. But I was literally taking the cabbage mix out of the bag, putting in a big bowl, and then dumping a bunch of Reverend Marvin's on it and having a mustard-based coleslaw on top of the pulled pork sandwich that was absolutely mind-blowing in many different ways, with the mustard working with the pork and the snappiness of the coleslaw. I mean, it was absolutely fabulous. But when does a mayonnaise-based slaw come into play, and is that the most prevalent slaw that we know about today?
I'd say it probably is the most prevalent today. Like most things in the regionalization of barbecue, that's all came out of the restaurant era, which started in the early 20th century, and that's where all the regional variations came from that we see, in all the side dishes and everything else. So as far as I can tell, up until restaurants, pretty much coleslaw was vinegar, cabbage dressing vinegar, maybe some sugar, maybe some salt and pepper in there. Really, commercial condiments came on the market in the 20th century, and that's when you start getting mayonnaise put in the slaw, which you start getting mustard put in the slaw. And by World War II, you see most of the recipes call for some blend of mayonnaise and vinegar both to give that little zip. And then people would start putting mustard in it, and people start putting other things in there like onions or things of that nature. So that's really when you start seeing that appear. And it's also when you start really seeing the regional variations in slaw. And you can which you still find today. And if you travel around, there's different variants of slaw. Probably my favorite is the most minimalist slaw I've ever had is at the Dixie Pig in Blytheville, Arkansas. And it's not even on the menu as a side item. You only can get it on the sandwich. But to me, it's basically cabbage, so just thin sliced cabbage. They must dress it in a little vinegar, but you can barely even taste it. But on top of a sandwich, it's great. But I feel like that's like the throwback. But then you get to the Carolinas, and in the 20th century, you have this divergence between Eastern North Carolina and Piedmont, North Carolina. Some people call Western, but the Piedmont area. In the East, it's sort of what you think of when you think of mayonnaise-based slaw. It's the white mayonnaise. Some people put pickle in it, some people put mustard in it, but it's primarily a cold white slaw. If you go up into the Piedmont, though, you get what's either called red slaw or barbecue slaw. And just like the sauce, they put a little tomato in there. So the coleslaw in the Piedmont, North Carolina is actually made with ketchup. So it's usually some blend of ketchup, vinegar, and sugar, maybe salt, maybe a little hot pepper, or sometimes it's just a red barbecue sauce. Some restaurants who use that and dress the slaw in it, and you get that. So you start to see that divide in Piedmont, North Carolina. And if you go to the Piedmont, North Carolina joints, slaw is just, if you get a barbecue tray, that is the chopped pork barbecue. It's the red slaw and hush puppies that come with it. If you get a barbecue plate, it's the same thing: slaw, hush puppies, the pork, and then French fries along with it. It's just sort of the standard thing. And so it's very, very common there. But these days you find coleslaw all over the place. It's in Memphis. It's sort of standard dish there. It's on all the menus in Texas. So it's just really become part of the barbecue canon. Though there is, but my favorite regional variation is one that I'm not sure if you've ever heard of. A lot of people have not. It's called hot slaw. Have you ever heard of?
No.
Sort of that. Not the opposite of cold slaw, because it's temperature, it's cold as well. It is hot in the sense of spiciness. And it's a really micro regional variation. The first time I ever came across it, I hope Steve Ray's listening today, because right down the road from his place in Ottawa, Tennessee, is a place called Couch's Barbecue, founded back in the 1940s. And it's the first place I came across it. It is a sort of yellowish slaw, but it's super spicy hot. Like it will light you up with fire. What they put in it exactly, I don't know. I tried to talk up the waitresses there, and they basically told me that nobody knows except the owner. It's like the owner and one person, like people have the recipe, and they make everybody leave the kitchen when they're making it. It's all a big secret. And so that was years ago that I first came across it. And then since then I found it in places around that little area where Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama come together. So down in Florence, Alabama, and in the Muscle Shoals. I think one's Bunyan's, one's Brooks Barbecue. Some classic places have hot slaw, and it's very, very spicy. But if the people in Eastern or in the Southeast Tennessee have their way, they're trying to get more and more people to discover it. And I have a connection. My wife grew up in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is one stop up the interstate from Ottawa. And when I first came across it at Couches, she never heard of it. Never had hot slaw at all. So it was pretty obscure in that area. But a bunch of folks or boosters in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is a town just north of Chattanooga, decided they were going to really make hot slaw happen. And in, I think, April 2022, they founded the Hot Slaw Festival in downtown Cleveland. They brought in all the vendors. And now you can actually find hot slaw all over that part. Cleveland's really taking off. Last year, the Tennessee state legislature declared hot slaw to be, I think the phrasing was, an official state food of Tennessee. Not the official state food of Tennessee, but an official state food of Tennessee. and that legislation was put through by the representative from Cleveland, Tennessee. So that they're trying to put hot slaw on the map. Everybody likes Tennessee or Nashville hot chicken, so maybe the hot slaw will be fast behind it. And if you put hot slaw on a hot chicken, you might really do some damage.
Is that commercially produced, the hot slaw, around that area?
Yeah, you can find it now, I think, in grocery stores. It was not 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure. I'd never seen it anywhere. The origins are disputed. Couches goes back to the 1940s. I don't know when they started serving it. The story that I think is told by the festival up there is that it was invented at the Starview Drive-In in Cleveland in the 1950s, serving it at the snack bar and hot dogs. So I've tried to trace it down through like newspapers and stuff. There's not really documentary evidence, so you have to sort of go by people's memories, but it did originate somewhere in that region back, probably around World War II, right as all the other regional variations of slaw were coming around.
Have you been able to track down the original mayo-based coleslaw recipe? I ask only because it's a loaded question. What I find to be the most repulsive part of coleslaw is the overuse of the coleslaw dressing, people not realizing really a little goes a long way. I don't mind more crunch and less sauce. I think the blend of textures between a nice succulent pulled pork sandwich and the crispy top with a little bit of Marzetti, or if you make something homemade, whatever, never Miracle Whip, of course. I think those play really well together, but you go to any restaurant, KFC, reputedly is supposed to have a great coleslaw, but it's sitting in 3 inches of liquid, which I find to be ghastly. So is there an original recipe?
I did find back in the 19th century, early 19th century, or actually well through the late part of the 19th century, most of the recipes are just coleslaw vinegar. That's very basic.
But that would be my favorite, by the way. I love those two.
It works great. Maybe some salt, maybe a little seasoning. But
sure.
I found one with cream in it, so just not mayonnaise, but just like cream poured in there. What happened in the 19th century, late 19th century, is cream-based things, mayonnaise-based salads of all sorts. Think of the Waldorf salad and all that kind of stuff. Really took off and became very popular, and that's when you started getting more and more mayonnaise into the slaw recipe. I'd be curious. I like to go back. I hadn't thought to do it, but sort of trace the amount that each of these recipes call for, and see, does that increase over time? But I agree with you. The downfall, even if you like mayonnaise based coleslaw, is putting too much in it. It always, if I'm not measuring and I just sort of start lolloping in there until it looks good, it's going to be way too much. Yeah. And the other problem is if your cabbage is going to start giving up water as it sort of sits in it if you sit in the fridge, and that's when it becomes that runny, disgusting mess. So I think a little mayonnaise goes a long way. Always use less rather than more. If it seems like it's too little, it's probably the right amount. I don't have an exact recipe I follow, but I always remind myself as I'm doing it, just start with a tablespoon or two and go from there.
And by God, let it be the last thing you mix up as you get ready to start having everybody go through a pulled pork line and start making sandwiches. Because once it gives up the crunchy ghost, as you said, it's on a timeline. It is on a definitive, very quickly dwindling excellence timeline. And once it turns, I'll make more fresh because I want to have everything that I want to have. Won't overdress it, but it's got to be the last thing, and then everybody's got to get after it, and then I'm not looking to make mass amounts because you just end up with cabbage soup, as you said.
Yep. And you can grate the cabbage in advance and mix all the rest of it up separately, and then just right before you're ready to serve, mix it together. And then you don't get that, you don't want that sort of pale white pool at the bottom of your slaw bowl. That's always kind of gross. To me, I think the other thing you can do is put a little sweet pickle. I think goes a long way. A little something like that to give a little extra flavor. Some of my favorite barbecue coleslaws. They have that very finely chopped pickle relish in it, and I think that's a great addition.
Anything else we need to know about slaw before I turn you loose tonight?
Only that I really think that it is the absolute best thing to put on a barbecue sandwich, and no barbecue sandwich is complete without, especially if you're in, say, Tennessee or in the Carolinas. It's sort of a must-have for me.
So this past weekend, I cooked 3 of perhaps the best racks of ribs I have ever cooked in my life. And guess what made it on top of my ribs? Coleslaw.
Big dollop of coleslaw. There we go.
Great. I mean, it just goes so great with everything. I mean, obviously, we're not getting too far outside of the box. There was also pulled pork at the party, and they are pork ribs and pork and coleslaw going together. But just goes to show how great, when it's made well, how great this dish can, or the side dish can
It's a
complement
perfect
what you're
compliment.
doing.
Yeah, it has the crunch. If it's freshly made, you have the crunch of the cabbage, which is great. You get the coolness of the dressing, which sort of balances out whatever spice or sort of pungent things you have on the barbecue. I think it's just a perfect combination.
Well, we have hit the one that most people love to have or love to hate, which is slaw, and we've done it in May, which I thought we would have been covering in January, but Michelin Star had other thoughts. Robert, always appreciate the time, and we'll cover a new topic next month.
All right, sure thing. Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Robert Moss right there. RobertFMoss.com, contributing barbecue editor to Southern Living Magazine, of course. Are you a slaw eater? That will be YouTube poll question of the week. Next week, are you a slaw eater? Now, am I going to remember that? Are you a slaw eater? Writing that down. Make sure I don't forget. I'll ask you right now before we put it up officially, are you a slaw eater? Man, oh man. I missed the boat for all those years of my life, all those decades of going, ew, that looks gross. Luckily, we get older and become more courageous. Especially on this show, we become courageous. Hey, did you know that Big Papa Smokers is celebrating 15 years in business? Yes, of course. Well, we can help both the Backyard Warrior and the Competition Pro bring home grand championships. Whether you're prepping for your next comp or just firing up the grill for spring or summer, Big Papa Smokers brings the award-winning rubs like Sweet Money, Competition Brisket and Steak, Cash Cow, Cattle Prod, just to name a few. They have bold flavors to take your barbecue to the next level. And for limited time, they brought back a fan favorite, Cucaracha. This extra kick that you have been craving will take your food to the next level. Barbecue Central Show listeners, this one's for you. Use promo code BBQ Central 25. That's BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free shipping. What? Free shipping? Yes. That'll save you a whole bunch, especially if you stock up. So take notes. Sweet Money Hot, the Brisket and Steak Rub, Cash Cow definitely, Happy Ending Rub, don't miss out, especially on pulled pork and ribs. Also Desert Gold. Also Hallelujah Jalapeno, I believe is what it's called. So nice. They're all so good. Oh my God. You can't go wrong. He's doing it really great out there. Visit BigPapaSmokers.com. Some exclusions apply. BBQ Central 25 for free ground shipping. Free ground shipping. Be there in 2 days or less, depending on where you're at on the UPS logistics module. Back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank our pal Robert Moss for joining us last segment. RobertFMoss.com, his website, if you'd like to check him out there. You can also follow him on some of the social medias. Not overly active. I'm sure if you reached out, he'd be happy to help. All right, so if you missed the first hour, don't worry. We'll talk about a recap here at the top. We'll talk about how you can listen to the first hour tomorrow. We'll get a YouTube poll question of the week update in the second hour, all that fun stuff, plus great guests. You're listening to watching the Barbecue Central show right here in the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is Doug Scheiding, the Rogue Cookers, Texas embedded correspondent. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude.
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wiener.
Oh, listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central show, where we talk about only the most important things in the barbecue and grilling industry. If you missed the first hour, don't worry. We are recording. The first hour will be available in audio podcast tomorrow early morning. The second hour of today's show tonight will be on Thursday early morning, and we'll talk about Friday here in just 1 second. Still to come on the show this evening, Michael Symon in about 13 minutes from now. And then at some point after that, we will mix in a Doug Trattner, food writer from Cleveland Scene, pal o' mine, accomplished outdoor cook himself, live firers. I gave him a kettle grill that he's using quite regularly and seems to be very fond of. So looking forward to catching up with those folks. Don't forget, the Barbecue Central show is coming to you live and direct from
Palm City, USA. Cleveland.
We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch on YouTube, and that can be found at youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. Unlike the audio podcast, which is parsed out Wednesdays and Thursdays, the minute this show ends here this evening, those video shows on those platforms will auto-archive, and you can go back and watch and listen until your heart's content almost immediately. So know that as well. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests. It was 50-50 not too long ago. It has bounced in another direction at this point. We're asking everybody if you think Brad Leininger of Getting Basted will get into the Barbecue Hall of Fame here in 2025. And currently 56% of you are saying no. You do not believe that he will be in the Barbecue Hall of Fame this year. I'm siding with you no's. I think he should be. When you look at his full complement of experience, even outside of the competition stuff, which on the heels alone should probably get him into the Hall of Fame. And again, it took Darren Worth 3 times on the list of finalists to actually get in, which I believe was last year. So Brad might have a few years left, assuming if he doesn't get in this year, he would have to be renominated for the list of final 10. We'll get into that here in a second. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday. I got to check this. Stand by. Okay, to talk. Oh, what? Yes. Okay. Coming up on the Best Moments of the Barbecue Central show in 10 minutes or less, coming Friday, episode 383, taking you back to May 12th, 2015, and this week, featuring Pitmaster of Big Papa Smokers, Sterling Ball. Within the minutes of this segment, Sterling really goes all in on his chicken process at the time back in 2015, talks about prep time, talks about finishing temperatures, and potential danger temperatures as far as what the judges might think of texture at certain temperatures. Not danger like cooking chicken to 130 and turning it in, but not cooking it to at least a benchmark temperature where texture comes into play. He also was very open about how the whole competition scene was changing at that time back in 2015. Very interesting to hear a top competition talk about things he's working on both while in competition and also just becoming a better cook from a high level standpoint as a team. So if you don't know Sterling, hearing him talk in this segment certainly will make you appreciate what he's been able to accomplish in the barbecue competition scene amongst other industries. So be sure to check that show out Friday. You can subscribe to the show by visiting thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe, where you can also get replays of the Barbecue Central Show Wednesdays and Thursdays. And don't forget, if you would like to hear a past guest or segment again that you feel has been lost in the archives, which is now extensive, you can email John, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com. That's Jon, John, at thebbqcentralshow.com. Let him know what you would like to hear, and he will do his best to meet your expectation. By the way, if we're staying on with this whole Sterling Ball topic just for a moment, while I don't know too much, I do know this. Sterling Ball did not.
Andrew, you are not the father.
He did not make it onto the finals list of names for the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame, which, in a word, is a travesty. A man who has been highly accomplished as far as barbecue competition cooking is concerned, winning some of the most major barbecue events that you can do. He has been a California Barbecue Association Team of the Year multiple times over. He then branched out of just being a competition cook and said, you know what, I think I could put on some really kick-ass barbecue competitions. And he did in two different ways. One being the guinea pig, which is was a cost-controlled competition, making it more approachable and more ability to enter into that sport. Guinea pig was. And then, of course, he had the King of the Smoker, which everybody raved about. That went on for 10 years. Everybody looking for the invite. That was invite only. A lot of people pissed when they weren't invited for that year, or wondering why so-and-so made it in that year, but not me, because look how well I'm doing this year. But it was Sterling's rules, and those were ones to play by. But like everything in the competition world, you have great things, you are living in the moment, and what we have most come to be known for barbecue competition, folks, is shitting on everything. It's not good enough. It's not fast enough. The judges suck. The meat sucks. Let's shit on everything. And you did with King of the Smoker, and then, like all good things, it went away. And then the first year it went away. Oh, I really miss that King of the Smoker. Oh, of course you do, dumbass. Couldn't appreciate while it was happening. You're too busy taking a dump all over it, and away it goes. So, not only competition cook putting on two different styles of competitions, always available for lending his expertise at whatever barbecue competition and or a promotion of events is concerned. Huge philanthropist as it comes to juvenile diabetes research. Of course, everybody knows, if you know anything about him, about his son Casey and how Sterling donated his kidney to Casey at birth and everything that he had been contending with here over his lifetime, and the amount of money and endowments that he has been able to raise and give back to hospitals that specialize in juvenile diabetes research and treatment. And then, of course, there's the whole business side of barbecue with the website and the retail and the rubs and the sauce. If this doesn't qualify you for a Hall of Fame, quite frankly, I don't know what does. And I know John Solberg feels the same way. He made a huge pitch and nomination for him this year. I was doing the same. I've been doing the same for the last 4 or 5 years. But the names committee continues to rebuff a Sterling Ball and will continue to try and rebuff the rebuff. And if I might mention the Hall of Fame just for one more minute, you might have noticed that in 2025, there was no special show announcing the 10 finalists for the Hall of Fame this year. Subsequently, there will be no announcement on this show. Where did we go wrong? Where did we break up? It's news to me because all of a sudden I got a bunch of emails going, well, here's the list of the 10 finalists. Why was there no special show midweek? And does that mean we're not got? I don't know what happened. But like all good things, like all good relationships that I have, I can probably guarantee this. I've offended somebody and they've decided they've had enough of me. And we had a great run with the Barbecue Hall of Fame over there at the American Royal. And I appreciate the, 6 or 7 years that we did those special shows. But it seems, at least for this year, we've taken a hiatus. Maybe we'll get back together. Maybe we'll fall in love. Maybe we won't. Usually we don't. But I don't believe I did anything to offend them. And if I did, I apologize. It's always my fault. But don't be looking for that. Just be on the lookout for when that class is announced. Hey, Michael Symon is in the green room. We'll get to him here in just one moment. Before we do that, we'll talk to you about what? The barbecue diet program. Yes! Because I have to ask you, are you tired of diets that make you choose between good food and real results? Well, you don't have to anymore. My pal David McDowell has cracked the code. His personalized fat loss coaching for barbecue lovers like you and me. Let you eat the foods you love, ribs, brisket, wings, all that stuff. Still, you can lose weight, get lean, and feel amazing, like me. This isn't some fad. It's a proven system that includes barbecue-friendly meal plans, tailored health strategies, weekly check-ins, so you're never guessing, never alone, never forced to give up what you love. And if you want to be part of something bigger, to surround yourself with like-minded barbecue lovers who are dropping weight, getting lean, getting strong, and staying motivated, then online, the Barbecue Diet Group is where you need to be. Here's the deal. You can keep struggling on your own, or you can plug into a system that works. Join now, get exclusive access to expert coaching, real-world strategies, and a support crew that won't let you fail. Go to school.com/BBQ. That's SKOOL. School.com/BBQ right now and take the first step, because you can have barbecue and your dream bod, but you have to take action. We all know that. I'm just getting ready to end week 9. Bro, you should see me. I'm shredded. I am not taking my shirt off. Don't even ask me. Just take my word. All right, we're back with Michael Symon right after this. Stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by McAuliffe Cigars. That's right. Step into the world of McAuliffe Cigars, where each blend is a chapter in a grand tale of craftsmanship and passion. The color series is my favorite currently. Of course, we know about McAuliffe Black and Blue, Red, and now the new McAuliffe Purple was just released a couple weeks ago. You can go to the website, McAuliffeCigars.com. That's MICALLEF cigars.com. Find the locator and a retailer nearest you. Leading off the second hour tonight is a Cleveland, Ohio icon, both in business and in the food world. You might know him as an Iron Chef. You might know him as a multiple-time TV show host, both on network television with a show called The Chew, and also on a number of programs inside the Food Network landscape. Others of you might know him from his best-selling cookbooks, one of which we will talk about here this evening. He's currently co-hosting 24 in 24, Last Chef Standing, on the aforementioned Food Network. I am happy to welcome back fellow Clevelander Michael Symon to the show. Michael, appreciate you making time here this evening and a third-time visit, which I am certainly appreciative of. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests on the show, which is simply this. Do you think that Brad Leiniger of Getting Basted will make it into the Barbecue Hall of Fame here in 2025?
God, I hope so.
Yes? We'll take yes. We'll take yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's won a lot. I mean, he also, I feel, changed the way that people cook whole hogs in competition, you know.
To say the least. Hot and fast whole hog doesn't usually meld together with words.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's about as good as it gets as far as the barbecue comp world goes. I mean, he's a gamer.
You were in Memphis in May, and you saw that ridiculous gateway drum smoker that needed a small baby crane to lift the lid. What did you think of that setup?
Yeah, I mean, at first I thought it was a hot tub. I was getting all excited. I was getting ready to, you know, pop a little bit of champagne and jump in. Then I saw the hog in there. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Let's circle back to the TV show just for a second. 24 now in its second season. Would a younger Lolita-owning Michael Symon have done something like this had the opportunity been available to you?
Oh, I'm sure I would have. I mean, you know, the chef world, the barbecue world, both of those worlds. I mean, I've been up 24 straight hours many a times in my life in the restaurants, opening restaurants. You know, so yeah, certainly. And you know, it's obviously competition doesn't scare me after doing Iron Chef for 12 seasons, 12 years. So yeah, I definitely would have jumped into that world.
Could present day,
but it is fun hosting it.
Yeah, I bet. But could you jump in and win this contest? Do you think? Like, competitor in you is probably always like yes, but realistically,
yeah, I think I could. I mean, with a lot of competitions like this, I mean, the beautiful thing about 24 and 24s is I tell people all the time, it is like people always say, I want to see what a chef's life is like. That show is what a chef's life is like. You know, you open a restaurant, you're up for 24 straight hours, you're getting all this cooking done. Things are changing quickly and drastically, and you're grinding through it. And then all of a sudden you're open to the public and you have to put up great food. And then especially nowadays with, you know, it used to be you didn't get reviewed for 2 months, but now with social and everything, you're basically the day you open, you're getting reviewed and critiqued. So, you know, for people at home that want to see what it's like being a chef, watch 24 and 24. That's what it's like being a chef.
Is Jonathan Sawyer on this season?
Jonathan Sawyer is on this season. And he's still alive. We're down to the final 10 chefs now, and he's still cooking. So the lineup this year was crazy. I think between the 24 chefs, there were over 20 James Beard Awards won, like a total of like 20 Michelin stars. I mean, it's a heavy hitter season.
You're a James Beard Award winner yourself. Would you rather have a Michelin star, or would you rather have a James Beard Award?
Well, I mean, Michelin stars are a little bit tricky because you have to be in a city that gives them out. You know, the cities that I've owned restaurants in did not have a Michelin program. So I mean, from that sense, I'll take the Beard Award. But you know, I certainly think that we've opened Michelin star caliber restaurants, just not in cities that are judging Michelin stars.
24 and 24, is that a idea that's pitched to you, or do you have this brainchild?
It was a combination. Yeah, it was a combination. Brian Lando, it's done by Lando Productions. Him and I have worked together, on and off for over 20 years now. He was a Food Network executive back in the day, then started his own production company. So, you know, we talked about the show 5 years ago, and then 4 or 5 years ago, and then like where it needs to be, what some of the challenges should be, what are things that happen to chefs in a daily, weekly, nightly situation that are incredibly challenging. Like on last week's show, we shut the gas off on them, you know, mid cook, and a lot of people at home are like, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous! That's not fair." I'm like, 5 different occasions at Lola. Like something happened on the street where the gas went out, the electric went out, the power went out, the hoods went down. And every chef, when you talk to them afterwards, you're like, oh yeah, that's happened to us before. So it's like, we're just putting them in real life situations, and seeing how they respond. The beautiful thing about a 24 straight hour cook like that is in television, especially for people that have been on, like it's their first couple times doing television, they want America to perceive them a certain way. So their answers, they really think about their answers instead of, I think they're mostly giving an honest answer, but they're a little bit guarded. 15 hours into cooking and sleep deprived, it all just goes away. They just say whatever pops into their head just comes out of their mouth. So you get a really true look into what chefs are thinking and how they're feeling and what's running through their dome.
I remember asking you why Barbecue USA was going away, and you gave me a very thoughtful answer. And you also said that competition-style shows, I'm not going to say that was a competition-style show necessarily. You're showing competitions, but 24 and 24 is a real food competition-based show. And these things
100%.
continue to dominate what people want to watch on these networks, right?
Yeah, TV is pretty easy in the sense of people go, a lot of times people say to me, I still have done a cooking show on the Food Network for years, but people say, why aren't there more cooking shows? We want more cooking shows. Why aren't there more cooking shows? And it's, the ratings for comp shows are higher than the ratings for cooking shows. It's it's literally that easy. And Barbecue USA, when we talked about it last time, when we initially came up with that show, it was supposed to be a 1-year special, and then it did well, so we were able to get 2 years out of it. But the challenges there, as you and I have talked about, is it's hard to do 24, 36, 48 episodes of something when for the most part everybody's cooking the same every week, in a very similar style. The barbecue comp circuit, once someone wins, shortly after that, everybody knows what they did to win or have a good idea, and they start kind of mimicking that style, and, the Casey barbecue. So I'm not against it, but I feel until, not only for TV, but just for barbecue in general, I would love to see competitions that are, people aren't locked into a style, they could just cook their style and they're not going to get deducted points because someone said the sauce should be this, or this should be the tenderness, or don't make it too spicy, or, whatever. We could go down the list. But that's when it would really get interesting to me. It was always funny to me, you're in Texas doing a barbecue comp, and you have these great Texas pitmasters that make incredible brisket, but they know that the judges, the people, aren't trained to really eat a Texas style brisket, so to say. So you get more of something closer to a pot roast, which is delicious. It was delicious, but it was to think that La Barbecue or Franklin could go into a barbecue competition in Texas and their brisket wouldn't even place because of the rules, or stylistically speaking, of how brisket's supposed to be in comp, is insanity. It's crazy to me. Give me a better brisket than La Barbecue and I'll chew off my toe. It just doesn't happen.
Any new TV shows coming up that we should be on the lookout for?
Right now the focus is mostly 24 and 24. We're always working on new things. I'm always working on doing another live fire show, so hopefully that'll happen sooner than later. The great news is last year 24 and 24 was the highest rated freshman show on Food Network in a decade.
Wow.
This year we're up 20, I think almost 20%, 25% to last year.
Wow.
in a world where cable TV is down 30%, we're up 25%. So the show has been incredibly, incredibly well received. So we'll continue to focus on that. But you know, I still want to do another live fire show. I think they're incredibly entertaining and they make the viewer at home think. And I think that viewers are more and more interested in live fire cooking or barbecue, you know, than they were 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago.
All right, so we'll wrap the TV, and now we're going to talk about the book stuff, Symon's Dinners, Cooking Out, and we're going to bring our pal, Doug Trattner, into the mix as well. So Michael Symon, that's Doug Trattner right there, and Doug Trattner, this is Michael Symon right over there. I don't know if you guys know each other or not.
I can't believe he's awake. I can't believe Trattner's awake right now. Like, what did you take an afternoon nap, buddy?
What time do they broadcast the NBA Finals out west? Do you know what happened yet?
I watched them at the same time. You know, it's one great thing about being from Cleveland is we break records that no one is capable of breaking.
Right.
I found out today that we're the first number 1 seed in the history of the NBA to lose all 3 of our home games. Good. So we just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, it's tough life. It's a tough life.
Trattner, Trattner, would you be more physical in the paint? Like if the Cavs signed you per se to like maybe for in place of Allen or somebody, like could you be an inside force in the paint? I feel you could be. You're pretty.
Oh
scrappy.
Yeah, I mean I'd live down there. You know, I was just like just.
Yeah. Doug, the enforcer Trattner, picking up technical fouls.
Right.
And he's like the Rick Mahorn of Cleveland Heights.
Yeah, he could be our Mahorn. I mean, Greg, you're all ripped up now. You could get down there too. I mean. Good things. I think good things could happen.
If it weren't for all the running, I'm in.
That's going to be trouble, Doug.
I mean, they do say you can't teach tall.
Yeah, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, do I know it?
So we have a new book. It's Symon's Dinners, Cooking Out. And so for those of just joining in, here we go. We got Michael Symon right here, and we got Doug Trattner below us. So compared to some of the other live fire based books that you two have written, and I guess Doug, we'll start with you since you're new into the mix here. How does this one stand apart in your view?
Oh, well, I mean, it's 100% all live fire, cooked over, a regular everyday kettle grill that you'll have in your backyard that 80% of Americans have in their backyard, standard charcoal, nothing fancy. This is a book for everybody. I'm Playing with Fire, which is, one of my favorite books. It's highly technical. I mean, you've been talking about all show. That's smoking. That's real barbecue. That's low and slow. This is accessible, approachable, and fun. And it, like I said, it's the regular equipment that we all have.
All right, Michael, how do you think this book lays out compared to some of the other ones?
Well, I think one, we base it off the show that Liz and I have been doing for 7 seasons, Symon's Dinners, Cooking Out. And again, it does have a more of an approachability factor. We have some, there is some low and slow things that we've showed people how to set up on a potbelly grill. But there's also some super fast dishes that you could make too, and desserts. I mean, like Liz made a chocolate bundt cake, in a Weber, and it was delicious. I mean, it was incredible. So it's it kind of takes you from through the whole alphabet, so to speak, of things that you could do on a grill, and the message that we're really working on teaching people, and that I've always kind of tried to preach is like anything that you could do inside, you could do outside. Anything that you could do outside, you could do inside. When you do it outside, you get the benefit of that kiss of smoke. That there's really no other flavor quite like that. And I tell people this all the time, and sometimes they look at me crazy, but I'm like, look, when the lid is up on your grill, it's a stovetop. The minute you close the lid, it's an oven. Like if you just think of it like that, life gets really easy, really fast, and we always set up our grill where one side is ripping and there's no coals on the other. So you have an on and off switch. Like they're like, I just don't know how to control it. I'm like, you put it over the flames to get things burbling. like if you're doing it in a pan. And then if it's simmering or reducing too quick, you move it to the side of the grill without the coals and you're good, you know? So I think sometimes for whatever reason, grills scare people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like especially when you're using charcoal or wood, like they're like, can I use a gas grill? I'm like, well, yeah, but I mean, you know, cooking a steak on a gas grill is like, you know, riding a bike with 2 flat tires. Yeah, it's a bike, you know, but it doesn't really get anywhere fast and it's just the results just aren't as good. So like nowadays with, you know, you have the chimney, you have the charcoal, you have starters, you know, that you can put in the bottom of the chimney. You have hot coals in like 6 minutes, you know. So I don't know. I hope more and more people get away from gas grills and start doing more things over live fire, because the difference in taste it's monumental. I mean, it's a really significant difference. So that's what we're always trying to preach, both on the show and in the book, and the simplicity of it. You know, and there's a lot of affordability there. So it hits a lot of, I feel it checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's been so successful. I mean, fortunately it was a New York Times bestseller. You know, so that always is very exciting to Doug and I. I mean, like, you know, Greg, you know me, I feel well enough now that like, it's hard for me to put a sentence together when I'm speaking. You should see the ones that I write for Doug to fix. Like, so
sentences,
like,
putting it kindly.
Yeah, he's like, 6 explanation points have the same meaning as 1. You just need 1. But I'm like, Doug, I'm really excited. He's like, yep, that's
how much
what that's
time you
for.
would save.
Just 1 explains that you're excited. You don't need 5 more following it. But you know, after 8 books together, I'm learning.
So you just mentioned it's a New York Times bestseller, and you know that has to be a big deal, because I believe 4 out of the 8, if I'm incorrect on that, please tell me, but 4 out of the 8 that you guys have worked on have attained a New York Times bestsellers list distinction. What's the metric on that? When do you become a New York Times bestseller?
I wish we knew, because it would probably be, you know, would make everything less stressful. You know, they gauge how many books you're selling in spans of a week. You know, so you know, on it quite frankly, in the past, I feel 4 or 5 years, I don't know when they changed it. I think they're harder to attain as a cookbook authors than they were previously. When Doug and I first started doing this together on the New York Times bestseller list, cookbooks was a category. And now cookbooks is part of a larger category. So like, you know, it's like we're in like a self-improvement / whatever. So we're going against a lot of things that aren't cookbooks. Like I believe we were the only cookbook. When they did the New York Times bestseller list and they named the 10 books, we were the only cookbook in the 10. Everything else was like a self-help book. You know, which those are good books too, but it's obviously easier when you're just competing against cookbooks.
Doug, when you get a call that you've notched another New York Times bestseller, has it become run of the mill at this point, or is every time like the first time?
Well, nothing is like the first time, as we all know. But every single time, it is such a, you know, it's funny. We were chatting last night, Greg, you and I, and Mike called me. It was you know, I think the day after we did a book event at the library here in Cleveland, and you know, he greets me like, you know, oh hey, you know, hey, New York Times bestselling author. I'm like, hey Mike, what's up? And there was a pause. And I could tell that he was like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. He's like, no, the book. I was like, oh, wait, this book. I was like, holy, you know.
Yeah.
So, yes, every single time it's incredible. And no, it never gets old. It never will get old. I hope it doesn't stop being this exciting.
Are you on a... Go ahead.
Greg, now I realize with Doug, I have to like be very specific because he's fancy now. So I have to say, hey, now 4-time New York Times bestseller. Like I have to, I have to let him know that we won another one.
The Cleveland Heights entitlement knows no bounds.
Privilege.
Yeah. Jeez, oh, Pete. So are you on a multiple book deal with your publisher right now, Michael?
Actually, currently, that was the last book of my deal. Hopefully Doug and I are going to continue to do more books together. And I mean, we've done all nine of my books have been with Random House and Potter. So I would imagine that we will continue down that road, but you never know. I mean, they always, the way that our contracts are set up with them is even when my contracts are up, they always have first right of refusal. Mm-hmm. So like if we come up with whatever the next book is going to be, we have to pitch the idea to them first. And then if they waver or don't respond immediately, we could then pitch the concept for the book to others. Fortunately, I mean, Doug, you might remember this better than me, but I don't feel any of the concepts we've ever pitched have been, I don't think we've ever been denied of what we've wanted to do.
No, I don't recall.
I remember. Yeah.
I mean, if you're batting, 500 on New York Times bestsellers, I don't know how many times I'm going to tell you no, right?
Well, it helps. It certainly helps. It's when you have a couple, when the holster's loaded, it's easier to that they trust our thought process, so to speak. And there's been times they've questioned things, and there's been times we've questioned them, but they've been very good to me over the past 9 books and 20 years.
Well, and that's just the process, right? I mean, they always want the best book that you could produce, right? I mean, so the pushback is always just to make a better book, and their suggestions are typically, they're good ones, and they're work harder, and do better, and we do, and the books end up better for it.
Doug, how do you? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we've also been fortunate. Like Raquel is no longer with Potter, but like she has been, the person that Doug and I have worked with on the past 4 or 5 books, right, Doug?
Maybe 4. I mean, she's been 4.
Yeah, Reek 4 and 4. I mean, we've had really back-to-back great people at Potter that have believed in us and given us great suggestions and listened to us when we've pushed back. And I mean, that's what makes really, it's like, obviously Doug and I are the co-authors of the book, but there's a lot of people on that team also that really help us get to where we are.
So maybe some of the people that are watching tonight know Michael because he's on television and he's got the name on the book, and you also know the face, but probably a lot of people don't know the face of Doug Trattner, at least from a holistic sense. I mean, a lot of us here locally that know Doug, of course. But how do you and Michael even meet in the first place, and where does business jump off?
Well, I mean, I've been writing about food and restaurants in Cleveland since right around the time when a couple years after Mike opened Lola down in Tremont, and I wasn't luckily I wasn't a young critic reviewing his restaurant, because that probably wouldn't go well, because young critics never they always come out of the gate a little strong, a little hot. But no, I mean, I think so. We had a fortunate relationship in that, like, I was, writing about food at the same time he was cooking food in Cleveland, and I think our careers, they were parallel, but not, often crossing, until he was working on, Carnivore came around, and he asked me if, I wanted to work with him on that book, and that was probably 13 years ago, I think. And I said, of course, I would love to. And we met at a coffee shop down here in Cleveland Heights, and just kind of hashed it out. It was, just good. I think, he saw the work I did. I think he understood that I was a good writer, and I understood food, and I understood him and his voice. And that's where we started. And then right after we kind of had that meeting was when Mike said, I got the job at the Chew and I'm moving to New York.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do this. Doug, now we're having a long distance romance.
Right.
But it all worked out. The other thing is too and I think the thing that people don't think about enough is, and it's for me, it's always one of the first things that I think about, especially the older that I get now. It's like, I want to work with people that I obviously respect, and I know that they're skilled at their craft, and that's my first thought. But then the very next thought is, they could be skilled at their craft and I can respect them, but they could be complete assholes, and I don't want to work with complete assholes.
Yeah.
So I work with people that I enjoy being with, and Doug and I developed a friendship over the years, and I had a ton of respect for what he did and how he talked about food, and not how he reviewed my food, but look, I ate at all the restaurants that he reviewed. So I was able to know when he was full of shit or writing a good review, or not full of shit and writing a good review. And 99% of the time, I always agreed with what he said about the food and how he talked about it. And he was never, even when you could tell he didn't like something, he was never aggressively disrespectful to the restaurant or the chef. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And but I consider Doug a friend. He's stayed at my house. We're around each other a lot during the book, and when I'm in town, I often see him. But we're friends, and it's not like we just do books together and then I never talk to him again. So, I think when you go through a cookbook or any book or restaurant or those things, they're personal, and it's a expression of yourself. So unless you have a great relationship with the person that you're doing it with, or minimally a mutual respect between the two, hopefully a friendship between the two, that's what makes the books great. It's a recipe is a recipe, and certainly we're good at writing recipes. Certainly we're good at testing recipes to make sure that the recipes work when the people use them. But the Doug has the ability to read my jibber jabber and put it into speak that the average human could understand is not only a gift that he has as a writer, but it's also because of our friendship, I feel.
Was there ever a time, Michael, that in the beginning you thought you might do all the writing as well?
No, I have, I write kind of everything or audio everything to Doug, and then he fixes it. I barely made it through high school, and and English was my worst subject, by the way. Math, I'm a wizard. English, I am had a very low skill set. We'll just put it that way. But I am a huge believer in anything that I do. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and the things that I'm not good at, I surround myself with people that are great at, and I let them do what I know they do much better than me, and I feel that and Doug could speak to this better than me. I feel that they know that they could do those things unabated. I'm not gonna mother them, so to speak. I'm gonna let Doug do his job, because Doug is a much better writer than I am. I'm a much better chef than he is. So so we put those two things together, and Doug obviously is a very good cook. I'm good at writing my emotions, even though I can't put it in an actual sentence. So when we put those two things together, that Doug understands food and I understand what I want to say, just not fully how to punctuate it. We end up telling the stories together, and everything comes out great.
Doug, how do you explain the process?
Yeah, and because we have been doing it for so long, I mean, I remember, early on, I was terrified to really kind of, I don't know, tweak something or edit something, and I'd send it to Mike, and I'd be like, is this okay? I went a little, this way, and he's like, stop. He's like, just everything is great. Everything you've done has been, on point. And so over time, you get the confidence to be like, I don't need to run everything by Mike if I'm just making a little change or doing this or that. And it's like any relationship you understand this isn't me, it's Mike. It's not about me. It's never been about me. It's about putting out books that are uniquely, singularly Michael Symon. People know him and love him for a reason, and that's why these books do so well, because of of his personality, and that's what these books are all about. And I'm comfortable in knowing exactly what his personality is, what he would never say, what he would usually say, and it's easy at this point.
Was there ever a time, Michael, when publishers said, "Hey, how about somebody other than Doug?"
Hey, whoa.
No, not really. I mean, I had to, like, when Doug did the first book, I had to sell Doug. You know what I mean? Like, I had to explain why I wanted to do it with Doug, like, because there's, so they didn't know who Doug was. I explained who Doug was. I showed them things that Doug had written. I explained about our friendship. And then from that, like, even the beginning process of that, they're like, oh, we love him, and then you go forward. It's like we've used the same photographer for the past 5 books, the same food stylist for the past 5 books or 6 books. But like, and like with me and Doug, because we're co-authors now, they never say like, oh, maybe you should do it with someone other than Doug. Like, they'll say like, maybe we should try a new photographer. Maybe I'm like, no. Like, I mean, if you want to give us some direction on how you want the photography to look, or, should we change some of the food styling? Like, I'm okay with that. But these people have become family to me, and we've built this so-called brand together. And, I'm not interested in someone testing the recipes that I've never met on, that has an Instagram account, because they'll do it for, X amount of dollars when I spend 5 times that, or more on a food stylist, or more on a photographer, or, I'd rather go about the way books work is I get an advance on the book. I then spend the advance to create the book. So the less of my advance that I spend, in theory, the more money I make on the book. But I've always looked at it is like, I want to have the best of the best do everything that we're doing, no different than how we always ran our restaurants. I could have made a lot more money at B Spots if I put shitty beef on the bun and just grilled it up and charged the same price. And quite honestly, probably only 15% of people might have noticed the difference in that we were, because we only ground whole muscle, which was more expensive. We only used a certain grade of beef, which was more expensive. And then, 70% of the burgers were well done. So like, who's the idiot? Maybe it's me, but like, but I think of the cookbook the same way. Like, maybe they don't see the difference in the picture or the difference in the food styling, but like that I get to style the food for the books with Susan Spungen, not even arguably the greatest food stylist that's probably ever walked Earth, and who's, did every magazine that Martha ever did, and any great food movie that you've ever seen, she probably food styled, that Susan, like, almost as a favor now to me, styles my books because of our long-term friendship. I'm willing to pay a little bit extra for that, or our photography team, or all those things that go into it, I think are why we end up on the New York Times bestseller lists. So, I don't know. I think, in life, you get in what you get out what you put in. And if you try to cut every corner and take every bullshit way to get from point A to point B, you're just long-term going to cheat yourself.
It sounds like, unknowingly, perhaps, you guys have just set a standard for how you're going to be writing a book, and anybody you're bringing with you, they're going to meet the standard, or somebody else is going to be there that's willing to meet the standard. There's no compromise.
Yeah, no compromise ever in anything we do. That's just not how for better or for worse, that's how I'm going to always choose to function. It allows me to sleep well at night, I guess, for, and like, quite honestly, if we started compromising, I know Doug would be like, I don't want to be part of this shit anymore. Like, it's not like Doug's becoming a billionaire from being a co-author on the cookbooks. It's like, it's a little bit of a passion project for all of us.
For sure.
Doug, when you look at where book writing was when you guys started and wherever book writing is as we sit here in 2025, I mean, Meathead was on the New York Times best-selling list, if you can believe it, back 6 years ago, and his new book actually just dropped today. How much has it changed, and what do you like and what do you don't like about it?
It's amazing. I was thinking about this today. Excuse me. I mean, obviously, everything is changing. Mike and I were talking about how much dining has changed in the last 20 years. I mean, everything's changed, obviously. But in the publishing world, so much has changed from when we started. And, I remember, the one manuscript, there'd be one physical copy of this manuscript, the first draft, essentially. And it is mailed around, for edits. And in fact, it was mailed to the wrong address on my street. Fortunately, it was a neighbor of mine who knew me. And so the one copy of, Carnivore was dropped off down the street. He brought it over here. So there was just one large physical copy. And then there was PDFs. And so you would have just a list. Imagine a list of each round of edits, hundreds and hundreds of little questions. Just questions that you would have to we would get on calls, these conference calls that would last 4 or 5 hours, just going through all these things with this one physical copy. That kind of evolves into online versions and things like that. And so there's just been so many kind of changes that have kind of streamlined the process, made it so much less. And, it should be a fun process. It is a fun process, but the editing process is a nightmare. The final kind of 3 rounds or so, and that has gotten so much less painful because of technology and advances. So hurrah for all that.
Are book writers, individuals, or teams always on that next book? So are the two of you noodling on concepts, or do you already have something in the chamber here that you're ready to fire off at some point?
Yeah, I think you're always thinking about the next one. We'll see if this happens. I mean, right now, if you were to ask me, what's the next book going to be, I would like it to be Greek. So obviously it's big part of my heritage, a big part of how I grew up and the foods that I ate. And again, goes back to, there are a lot of live fire cooking in Greek cuisine and the Greek community. So I would really love to do a great Greek book. My mom is not as young as she used to be, and my father has passed, and I would love for my mom to see a Greek book done. While she still has all her wherewithal, so to speak.
All right, let's ask the tough questions now as we get ready to close out. Doug, what's the best restaurant to eat at in Cleveland?
Oh, well, I mean, the best restaurant to eat at is always the one right down the road. And so I'm going to Doug Katz's Jug. I'm going to Vero Pizza. I'm going to Kiln over at Van Eyck. And these days I like to, when I'm not working, I stay close to home.
Michael, best restaurant in Cleveland.
Did he ask you best restaurants in Cleveland? I think Zug is incredible. Doug, last time I was home, Doug sent me to Sense Pizza, which I thought was outrageously good. My speaking of my mother, my sister brought her to Fahrenheit the other day, and they just had a great time for Mother's Day. When Liz and I were home on the book tour, we went to Cordelia, had a really wonderful meal. Obviously that's a little bit of an emotional heartstring restaurant for me too, because it was, the former Lola. But very proud of the job that they're doing there. And I think I said to Doug after I ate there, I'm like, God, it would have broken my heart if I walked into that restaurant and like the whatever went in there, like the chefs didn't have the passion and the desire to just kind of do everything the right way. And I think at that restaurant, they're really working incredibly hard to do everything the right way, day in and day out. So, those are some of my favorites. Current favorites, there's, the Cleveland restaurant scene has gotten so good.
Yeah. Doug, would you say that Rocco is kind of made I don't want to say usurped Michael Symon, but Rocco's here all the time now. So do you think Rocco is in essence like the latest Michael Symon?
Hey, look, I'm not gonna play that game. I will say that what Rocco is doing downtown is no, like, good for him because downtown was always tough. Like downtown Cleveland, always tough to get somebody in there who's doing the heavy lifting, and he is doing it day in and day out. And that restaurant is so appreciated and so consistent and so necessary down there. That I mean, I'm thrilled that he's there, and I know he's killing it.
By the way, I'm not
Cleveland. You know what I would say?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would say that no chef understands Cleveland better than Rocco. I think that is like I hate to give anybody any title or anything like that, but like I think what Rocco is incredible at is understanding the Cleveland customer and what they want and what they're looking for and how to make them happy day in and day out.
The thing that I love the most about Fahrenheit moving out of Professor and Tremont coming up downtown. I'm not a Cleveland historian, but back in the day, Fahrenheit used to be my favorite joint, John Q's Steakhouse. So the fact that thing sat empty for like decades and has now been revived into a hotspot downtown has really made my heart sing. All right, let's do this rapid fire and then we'll close it up. I did this with Michael Symon last time, and he was 2 out of 3, believe it or not. And we'll start here. Michael, do the Guardians?
Why believe it or not? Wait, why believe it or not?
Well, because you were really sure on the one that was a not, and I was I don't know. So here we go. All right, do the Guardians make the playoffs this year?
I'm going to say yes.
Yes. All right, Doug, do the Guardians?
What about you, Doug?
Make the playoffs?
Absolutely.
Yes. Boy, I don't want to be the contrarian here. I don't think so. All right. Do the Browns make the playoffs this year, Michael?
No.
Doug, Browns, playoffs? No. And it's unanimous? No for me. This is a different question than it was originally phrased. Michael, do you think that the freshly ended Cavaliers season should be looked at as a disappointment? Yes or no?
You know what? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. Like I would have loved to see him go further, obviously, but what a great regular season they gave us. We obviously got to build a team a little bit that's built better for playoff basketball. I mean, Indiana, they were the better team. So I'm going to say no, but yeah.
Doug, Cavs, a little disappointing?
Agree. Of course, it's disappointing. Great season. Sad ending. It just fell a little short. Ran out of, too many injuries, ran out of energy, ran out of steam, ran against a tough Pacers team.
All right. I say no. Not a disappointment. And solely because at the worst time possible, injuries reared their head again, just like last season when we were out 2-3 players. I mean, we could talk about how it seemed that the second team was completely invisible in the postseason, where they were totally visible all through the regular season, where you could run 10, 12 guys in rotation regularly and count on anybody to give you 10, 20 points. That was a little frustrating, but having your major guys out with what were obvious hampering injuries is not going to help you get through the second round of the playoffs. And I agree with you, Michael. I mean, Indiana is fucking tough. So I don't fancy anybody looking to get them in the conference finals coming up for sure.
I do think too, though. I think one thing that the Cavs are going to have to do probably this offseason is, as good as our team is and as good as they were during the regular season, they're probably going to have to do a little retooling. You know, like we got out muscled by the Knicks last year, and we got out muscled by the Pacers this year. And you know, once playoff basketball starts and the physicality, you know, heats up, it seems like the only one that could really handle the physicality is Mitchell.
It's a New York Times bestseller again. The book is Symon's Dinners, Cooking Out, and it was co-authored by the guy to my right, Michael Symon, and also the guy right below me, Doug Trattner. Doug, Michael, appreciate the time here this evening and had a great time. Continued success with the book, and we'll talk to you both again very soon.
Always great to see you, Greg. And Doug, you have a fabulous head of hair.
All right, there they are. I feel like the infighting could jump off at any point. We certainly don't want that. All right, great extended segment there with Michael Symon and our pal Doug Trattner over at Cleveland Scene. If you're local to Cleveland or you just like reading great food writing, Doug Trattner is the guy you want to follow, especially if you're going to be visiting here in Cleveland. Everybody's always emailing, where should I go? What should I do? Follow Doug. He's got it all. He's got his finger on the pulse of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city. All right, all the way back in the first hour, we had Mr. J from the Cigar Authority giving us the latest and greatest on Perdomo, McAuliffe, and a bunch of other stuff. And then after him, it was Robert Moss, contributing barbecue editor in Southern Living Magazine, robertfmoss.com. And then, of course, in the second hour, Michael Symon and Doug Trattner. In the beginning, Michael and I were talking about 24 and 24 on the Food Network in its second season and doing markedly better than the first season, which was a banger on its own. And then we also talked about the book, Symon's Dinners, Cooking Out, co-written by Doug Trattner. Getting a little back and forth there as well. Very fun, very enjoyable. Hope you liked it. And as we end the poll here this evening, and I'm going to do it right now before anybody tries to ruin it for me, do you think Brad Leiniger is going to make it into the 2025 Barbecue Hall of Fame? We are at a deadlock, if you can believe it. 50-50. How about that? All right, big show planned for you next week. It is the third Tuesday of the month next week. Remember that because we were off last week. West Wright will be in, and who knows who else. Sure to be a great one. So, how do I always leave? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American Greg Rempe saying, Shabbat!
Hey, what's up? This is JM, host of the Celebrity Grill podcast on iTunes, and you're listening to the Barbecue Central Radio Network. All barbecue and grilling, all the time.